Welcome to DDOCast episode 375, recorded on March 20th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have a host of fun guests, which we'll get to in a moment. This week's screenshot, Turelius finds serenity among the chaos of whaling prison in the 214th screenshot of the week. It's a nice screenshot. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Google+, Hangouts, YouTube, the forums, or from our website, DDOcast.com. We're hosted by CyberEar's awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. On the podcast this week, we've got a whole bunch of game news regarding dev comments and game direction and design, more Rogue Talk, Update 25 is on Lemania, but more importantly, we have another Ask the Devs. We have several devs joining me this week. So why don't you guys maybe go around the table, say hi, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Severlin, executive producer.
Hey, I'm Steelstar. I'm a content designer.
No Worries, also a content designer.
And Knockback, also a content designer.
And I don't know how much you can hear me, but I'm Cordovan, the community manager. I'm going to be the guy behind the keyboard today.
I'm going to throw in a quick apology for the video quality here. We're having a few issues. I think they're all on my end. But because of time constraints, we're not going to deal with them, and we're going to live with them and see some fun stuff. So the devs are going to throw us Temple of Elemental Evil here. And Jerry, I guess just throw it over to you and see what we get.
Sure. I'm going to just briefly move the mic while I introduce this just a little bit. Hopefully you can hear me okay. We're going to show you an early preview build of Temple of Elemental Evil that made its debut onto the Lemania public preview server on Thursday, March 19th. This is not in a finished state. You know, there is still some under construction signs and that going up there. So if you do see a few things that are, you know, perhaps a little unusual, that should be the norm for this stage of the Lemania public preview process. But we did want to give you guys a sense of what to expect here for the Temple of Elemental Evil. Temple of Elemental Evil is something that will be coming in Update 25 very soon. We are starting our Lemania previews right now. And we're just going to kind of give you a little rundown as to a little bit what to expect. The level of spoilers in this, I think we would probably want to term medium. If you are really concerned about seeing anything with Temple of Elemental Evil, you might want to just stick to the audio version here. But we are going to show you the way the very, very start of the end fight, before it even starts, though. We're just going to kind of show you, a look at the final boss and all that sort of thing. But if that's something that you absolutely do not want to see, then, like I said, perhaps you should stick to the audio version here. But otherwise, we're just going to wander around on in a little admin character here and give you a little sense of what's going on. So I'm going to start by just sort of letting you know that when Update 25 comes out here, you'll be able to find the Temple of Elemental Evil in the Hall of Heroes. It's on the lower floor, and it's on the the side by the Fate Spinner, right, and the entrance to the marketplace or Steelstar, right?
It's actually going to be moving a little bit in the next Lemania patch over to the end with the Stormreach teleporter and airship and most of the other current amenities.
Okay, it'll be moving then. And I will say, just for those to get it off right off the bat, Temple of Elemental Evil is a new adventure pack, free to VIP. It's level 7 and level 30. And so both epic and heroic versions are supported. Now I'm going to turn the mic over to the crew. Perhaps maybe Knockback, you could start off by talking a little bit of what is the Temple of Elemental Evil?
So the Temple of Elemental Evil you're going to see is our adaptation of the classic module from the 1980s. And you get there by talking to these gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are druids in Eberron who deal with extraplanar and other such shenanigans. And they have been collecting mysterious remnants and have managed to use the mysterious remnants to build a portal to the Temple of Elemental Evil, which they say is actually not, it's on the same plane you're on, but it's very far away, and they're confused by that. And they send you off to investigate. And as we enter the Temple of Elemental Evil, people who are familiar with the original module will take a look at that right there and see the box cover from the original module. What we've tried to do in our adaptation is be as true to the spirit as we can while still making it into a DDO content pack. It's somewhat. We haven't done everything in the Temple of Elemental Evil. The original campaign, you'd level up like 4 or 5 times while playing it. This is 2 quests, but within the quests, we try to stay very true to the spirit of the original module, which is a classic dungeon crawl. And yes, danger lurks at every bend, including immediately inside the temple grounds. They're the bandits. Fans of the module remember those bandits have been patrolling the highway leading from Nulb to here.
Just briefly, I'm going to turn down the audio just in case it's causing any overlay issues with the dev chat.
And it looks like you're already taking damage here, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he's being
fighting some bandits.
Yeah, being shot at by bandits. There are also some other bandits you can talk to in this area, but we should probably just head directly inside.
Yeah, that sounds good. Now, you mentioned that this is our interpretation of the classic Dungeons and Dragons module, and that comes up to and including, say, things like this front door and the view and all that.
Right. So this front view of the temple is almost exactly like the box cover. There are some differences we've made for the purpose of our story, and if you walk forward, you'll see one of them, which is, in the original module, this door was sealed. In our version, it's open. There's a story reason for that, which we'll leave to you to discover.
Well, if nothing else, if it's sealed, it's hard to get in, so.
Yes, though there are multiple entrances in the original module. In our module, there's only one. If you go in, you'll talk to Otis. Again, fans of the module will remember Otis. He's a blacksmith from Nulb. Here, he's telling you various things about what he's learned about the temple. Namely, that it's the home, an ancient demon is imprisoned inside it, and that demon is trying to come out.
Oops, did I do something?
Otis is standing next to a crafting device, incidentally.
So here's one of the first things you're going to see, which is just how big the Temple of Elemental Evil is.
So yes, the temple is massive and sprawling. This is the interior of the, outside part of the temple, but most of the temple is a giant underground complex. If you head left, okay, so we've descended down into the great underground complex that lies underneath the temple itself. A large chunk of this adventure is, like I said, classic dungeon crawling. You will explore the vast temple complex. You will encounter all sorts of different creatures, find loot, find treasure, find unexpected things like bear traps. And there's a lot of random encounters, rares you can find. There's essentially a Slayer quest you can complete, get experience as you go along and explore. And sometimes, because it's a random encounter system,
More bear traps.
You'll get more bear traps or nothing. Never know what you're going to get.
Right.
And that is a big chunk of the temple. But in addition to that, there is also, the story-related sections of the temple, which
right. So one of the interesting things about adapting a classic module like this, the original module was set up to be very non-linear. You would go into the temple and discover what you discover, loot what you loot, come back out. In some sections you might not find it all. You might find your way to the end boss, but maybe you won't. So in adapting this for DDO, we sort of had to try and find a linear path that would take those that are just trying to run the core of the dungeon from start to finish through a story. There's plenty to do if you're the kind of player who wants to just look around. But there also is a full kind of storyline that'll take you from beginning to end if you want to follow it.
So what can players expect when they're in the Temple of Elemental Evil? What kind of things are they going to fight? But they're running encounters, but what's kind of the overall feel going to be?
Well, as I said, exploring a giant complex is populated largely by followers of the elemental cults that the demon has set up inside the temple. So you meet a lot of cultists and clerics. But there are also other evil creatures that have made their home inside the temple, some of which we kind of want to leave as surprises.
Mm-hmm.
Other which are sort of predictable. It's the Temple of Elemental Evil. You will be encountering, say, elementals at some point during the entire process.
Can you talk a little bit about the random encounter system and how that's going to work in this adventure?
So the random encounter system, we've been seeing the random encounter system in action. It's used to generate not just trash mobs, but also things like crates, treasure chests, special interactive items that give you buffs, and also rares. There's a whole bunch of rares. There's something like 16 rares in the first dungeon alone. And because it's the random encounter system, you may encounter any of those things in very different places. There's some static encounters, like these harpies always show up in the same spot, but many of the other encounters can show up almost anywhere. So that adds a tremendous amount of variety to exploring the temple.
In addition to that, this being one of the larger dungeons we have in DDO at all, you're going to be fighting a lot of monsters along the way, and we've added optional objectives similar to our landscapes for killing lots of monsters. So you'll be earning some XP along the way if you're killing a lot of monsters, which you probably will be.
Let's see. I can talk this a little bit more. Oh, is this one of them?
Yep, so that is a Lich special random encounter. Got a chest, as you can see.
Unfortunately, your stream froze on my end as well. I can't get to see that, but
Such a powerful Lich
hey,
that
there it is.
Destroyed the internet.
All right, so what I'm going to do then is just wander around a little less because static images are a little less choppy. So, but what we're going to show you next, can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. We're going to show you some of the elemental temples in particular here.
So, yeah, within the greater temple complex, there are 4 elemental temples, one for each element. And we're going to start off by looking at the Earth Shrine. Just the first one you're likely to encounter.
Can you speak to how the dungeon difficulty is going to work for this one? Because it's been said that Elite and Hard are going to be a little bit more ramped in difficulty.
That is the plan. It's not necessarily what you're seeing on Lamania right this instant. But the plan is both Elite and Hard will be more difficult than they are currently and more difficult than they sort of have been in the past.
Yeah. If you think of DDO as the difficulty of normal is 1 and the difficulty of hard is 3 and the difficulty of elite is 6, we're pushing to be maybe a 1, 4, 7. It's really meant to be an endgame dungeons. We want our endgame people to be able to find challenge in it, but it's not like we want to ramp up elite so hard that people can't do it.
At the same time, and especially for level 7, the level 7 version, we do want folks to be able to go in and have a good time on normal.
Yes. And the difficulty we're talking about is for elite. I don't think that we need to ramp up for epic, I don't think we need to ramp up the difficulty necessarily for a level 7 dungeon in terms of what players will experience when leveling.
So I'm probably safe to bring my permadeath group in heroic levels.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, I hesitate.
As
to
safe
say
as any
that-
DDO dungeon is.
Yes. But yes, if you went in on level 7, it is not our intention that this difficulty would be ramped up beyond what is out there in the heroic levels. I was playing through it fairly well on a rogue with 1 henchman on normal and wasn't having problems in terms of survival. So if that's any indication. There are some moments in there that I may have to, run back and reevaluate, but that happens on a lot of different content. yeah, I wouldn't imagine that the heroic dungeon would be our intention, especially on normal or even hard, would be that it would be that much worse than other dungeons you're encountering at that level.
In the meantime, we've reached the Earth Temple.
Yes, so this is the Earth Temple. There are 4 elemental temples for the 4 elements in the Temple of Elemental Evil, and this is the one for Earth. It has some Earth elementals that are patrolling around, keeping guard over their head cleric. And the head cleric is kind of holding himself up until you've taken care of all the elementals.
And I will say that Cordovan has, in many ways, done this the hardest way possible, which he's gotten away with because he's cheating.
Yeah.
But there is a clever way of doing this encounter that you'll discover if you explore the temple thoroughly.
Huh. To talk after the
yeah, if you
here. I don't
just fighting all the Earth elementals is the hardest way of doing it. But yeah, there have to be some secrets. Can't tell the audience everything.
So, and long and short of it is we're going to be going through, other elemental nodes as well. I'm going to give you a quick photo tour of that just for time purposes here. We can talk as much or as little as you'd like to about it.
Well, yeah. There are, in the first dungeon, there are 3 floors of exploration.
Yep, the underground floors.
Yep. Encompassing the 4 elemental temples and a bunch beside.
And fans of the original module will note that the map for these floors in the first temple dungeon are very, very close to the original module's maps in terms of layout.
Right. So, we have taken some liberties. There are some spots that you can't get to, but we have tried to stay as close to the original layout as we could within the confines of trying to make a couple of dungeons that you could complete in a reasonable amount of time for a DDO content pack, as opposed to the original, which, as I said, the original was basically a campaign unto itself. Oh, looks like we're in the Fire Temple.
Yes.
So each of these each of these elemental temples has a somewhat different mechanic, a somewhat different sort of boss. There's a fellow here you can talk to, I believe. The cleric in charge. And he demands tribute. And you can give in to his demand for tribute or not, as you see fit, with differing results.
Really?
Yep. And like I said,
You picked the lawful good option.
yep.
How much time would a player or a group expect generally to kind of be in these dungeons?
So that's a very good question. It will really depend. The first time through, just us devs going through the first time, we have spent upwards of an hour on the first floor. That's if you want to go into every room and explore every nook and cranny, which you don't have to do. Once you know the dungeon, you can probably do it considerably shorter.
Yeah, we were doing some first-time runs with the Players' Council yesterday, and they were taking an hour to an hour and a half per dungeon, not really knowing where they're going. I expect once people learn the dungeon and figure out a sort of optimal path, they'll be able to run it fairly quickly, but hard to say for sure.
Some folks on the Lamania forums have been comparing this the temple to something like an adventure area, which I think is a pretty good comparison. It does have a slayer, so you can get experience just for going in and slaying monsters. There are wares you can find off the beaten path. And likewise, there's a treasure system that makes it worth your while to find those rares off the beaten path, which we'll talk about after we're done getting through the dungeon.
For some rewards, going through the dungeon might be advantageous, but for other rewards, or if you're trying to accomplish other goals, exploring the dungeon actually becomes more advantageous. So you're encouraged to go around and explore, and you could explore quite a bit on the dungeons. I think I was in the first level for almost an hour, just mapping out the whole thing and killing everything there.
Yeah, and that was the first floor of the first dungeon.
Yeah, there's two more floors in that dungeon, and then there's the whole second floor.
So it's kind of like an explorer area meets something along the lines of haunted halls.
Exactly. That's an excellent way of describing it. And like I said, we were trying to capture that old school feel of you go into a dungeon and you explore for an entire session, and you're still not done with that dungeon. On the other hand, we realize people will learn the main part of the quest, and they'll be able to do that much quicker once they've learned it.
All right, so what are we looking at here, though? This is the end fight, right?
This is the end fight of the first dungeon. Like we said, it's split into two dungeons, a part 1 and a part 2. This is the end of the first dungeon. It's found on the 3rd floor down of the temple. You're dealing with a powerful wizard by the name of Falrinth, who sort of knows what's going on in this temple and doesn't want you to get the powerful objects he has. So he's going to put up a bit of a fight.
And of course, he's going to do so using the power of, you guessed it, the 4 elements. And there are a variety of elemental bosses in this room who you have to fight and defeat before you can move on to the wizard himself. There is a trick to this fight, just as there is to the Earth Temple fight. Not the same trick,
Don't spoil it.
but we're not going to tell you. We're not going to tell you what the trick is.
All right,
Don't
we are
die.
going to head back into the Hall of Heroes.
So defeating Falrinth is the end of the first dungeon, but that's only part 1. There's also part 2. And part 2 deals more with the elemental nodes. Zegetmoy, the demon who is trapped inside this temple, has constructed elemental nodes on the 4 elemental planes to tap into the power of those elemental planes. And you get to visit those nodes as you try and find Zegetmoy deep inside the temple. So head straight ahead.
Why don't you talk just a little bit about accessing this second dungeon? It can be done from inside the dungeon itself, or you can
Yep.
come back at a later time and go through an NPC.
Yep. So it's a 2-part dungeon series. You have to do part 1 before you can do part 2. But once you have done part 1, you can keep on doing part 2 multiple times if you want to, or just keep on doing part 1 multiple times if you want to.
And when you finish part 1, you'll be right next to the door that lets you into part 2. So if you're playing and want to carry straight on to the next dungeon, you can do that without going back to the public space. Or if you want to leave and, sell and repair first, you can come back, just talk to the portal that we went into again, and it'll give you the option of playing 2 or replaying 1.
Pro tip, if you need to repair in the first dungeon, you can always go back to Otis,
Oh, yeah.
because he does repair, being a blacksmith.
That's useful and convenient. So does the second dungeon have a Slayer version as well? And do they overlap, or are they different Slayers?
They are different Slayers, but both of them have Slayers.
Yeah. And as it happens, that unlike our Slayer zones, these are more like traditional optional objectives. They do reset every time you run the dungeon.
Right, so you'll always be able to get Slayer XP by running these dungeons.
And do Slayer potions work with them, or?
No, they don't.
They don't.
That's the price you pay. 'Cause this isn't, it works like an adventure area. It isn't technically an adventure area. So now we're in the second dungeon. What happens in the second dungeon is that one of the 4 elemental nodes is selected randomly by the game to be the node that you have to visit in order to unlock Zegetmoy's chamber. There's a item you need to get to unlock her chamber. And which elemental node you get is random. You can visit all 4 nodes, though, if you want to, during any playthrough. And you may want to do that if you're, again, looking for treasure ingredients or trying to find specific rares. We're going to visit just a couple nodes. Oh, yeah, take a look at that statue. That statue is Zegetmoy, the statue of Zegetmoy, And what regards.
You just got photobombed.
We'll be seeing the real thing later on. Right now, we're going to visit just a couple of nodes. The fire node first, just to give you an idea of what we got coming up. And the nodes each have their own rares and slightly different mechanics depending on which one you're in.
These are not the nodes.
These are not the nodes.
Oh, that's not it.
These are not the nodes we're looking for?
Not the nodes we're looking for. Yeah, that's something else.
That's the thing we'll show you next.
Yep.
Yeah.
Looks like the air node, which is fine. Yeah, so we've actually got to the air node, but that. There's no problem with that. We can go out. As you can see, it's kind of windy in the air node. That's not an air elemental, or is it? Each of the 4 nodes has a different theme. If you go all the way to the big chamber in the air node, you can see sort of one of the gimmicks of the air node. Yeah. Try jumping. So the parts of the air node have light gravity, so you can jump much higher, which you may need to do to reach certain places inside it.
Sweet.
Yeah, so prepare accordingly for each of the nodes. Obviously, yeah, lava is involved with the fire node. So once you have gone to the correct node, found the item you need to find, which can be tough because it can appear in different places within a given node, you can then unlock the way to Zuggtmoy's chamber, which we have done through the miraculous power of cheating.
Is there an indication of which node you need to go to?
Yes. So there's basically lights over the corridors that lead to the correct elemental node, and the corridor will light up, and there'll be a symbol over the corridor that shows which node you want to go to.
Should I do it?
So yeah, now that you've gone through the nodes, you're in the part of the temple where Zuggtmoy has been imprisoned previously. Her power has kind of been steadily leaking out into this part of the temple, so as you can see, it's overgrown.
We should mention, yes, what Zuggtmoy is. She is the demon queen of fungus, hence the mushrooms.
Yes.
So yeah, this is her home realm, and therefore it is pretty mushroom intensive.
She's had a lot of time in here to decorate the place.
She's been trapped for thousands of years and is anxious to get out.
So that's her up ahead. If we want to walk forward, you can see the very beginning of this, but don't get too close or you'll set off the fight.
Don't show too much.
Yeah. This is probably about as far as we should go. But she's there waiting, and it should be an interesting fight. I'm actually kind of excited to see what people think of it.
Yep, there's some interesting mechanics in there. We're putting in hints about the mechanics. Just right before this broadcast, we put in some feedback.
Yep, it's a kind of a complex fight with a couple of different elements to it, but there will be a place available in the temple where you can sort of figure a little of that out beforehand.
We also need to mention that there's something we can't mention. I'll give you a hint as to what it is. It relates to at least one optional objective that isn't currently implemented. But there'll be more information about our secret surprise later as we get closer to release time. Let the wild speculation commence.
There's one thing players are good at, it's wild speculation.
All right, so that's our basic look, relatively spoiler, light look at the Temple of Elemental Evil here. We have more time we wanted to set aside for any questions you might have. I don't know if you wanted to look at the rogue assassin tree at all quickly, or if you had any questions about that. Perhaps we should largely at this point turn it over to you to kind of direct the rest of the interview here.
Yeah, I think maybe just one. I'm getting a little bit of feedback from you guys now, but I think just maybe go through the different. We got assassin, acrobat, and mechanic. What are your design goals? What's the intent with those 3 trees and where you're trying to take them?
The assassin tree is meant to support someone who likes a meticulous play style, but in a group it can still keep up with the Zerg just because it has lots of sneak attack damage. So what we've done is we've increased the ability for it to buff up while it's sneaking up to opponents, and the buffs remain for 10 seconds after the assassin comes out of stealth. Our goal there is to make it feel like the surprise round on pen and paper. So when you use Measure the Foe, you'll come out and you'll have a big bonus to dodge and to damage when you first open up. So if you open up with an Assassinate, you still have 10 seconds of dealing out damage to a variety of enemies. After that, you have to stay light on your toes and use your wits to survive. So you'll probably want someone else taking the attention of the enemies, or you can use Assassin's Trick in order to make them more vulnerable to sneak attack, and then Shiv will also bluff them so that you can sneak attack in case you don't have someone who is better at attracting their attention than you are. For Thief Acrobat, it's more of a be in the midst of foes and with a lot of large sweeping staff attacks, and it's very dodgy. I know that's not really a word, but so it uses light armor and evasion and a lot of trip attacks. It has an AoE trip attack, and we made it even more so. Mechanic we tried to make into a saboteur and someone who is good at launching ranged attacks from stealth. We also revamped the trap system, and you can now create player-created traps all the way up to level 27, both for elemental damage, and you still have some small spell effects that you can still get the DC high enough that it's relevant even in higher level content.
Great, thanks. I wanted to just kind of briefly touch on the Mimic Festival, because we expect that to come back. What can players expect in terms of what do we see changing with the Mimic Festival next time it comes around?
Okay.
Do you want to talk about that? I don't mind, but
one of the things obviously is we want to get more feedback on when the frenzies are going off, so people actually know. That would obviously be pretty helpful. We want to adjust the amount of tokens that people are getting so it isn't quite as grindy and doesn't involve people raiding a bank repeatedly over and over again. Not that we weren't aware of that. The other thing.
Bank robbery in Eberron went up by like 10,000%.
yeah.
House Kundarak is very sad.
We'll probably try to sneak in different rewards when the festival comes back in terms of that. And I think that the players want rewards that aren't quite as randomized is one of the big feedbacks we got. So what will probably happen is something will happen with the card mechanics so that you can get the cards that you want.
Sounds all great. I wanted to touch on some of the comments specifically that Severlin made, and I think some of the other guys as well. To start, you mentioned that you want to focus on doing more classic dungeons. I was wondering if you could kind of elaborate on what does that. Are we talking about like more haunted halls, Temple of Elemental Evil stuff, or kind of more of a classic dungeon crawly feel?
Both. So I'm specifically talking about dungeons that are familiar to the players from old school. I don't want to put out names because then I'll get into trouble with approval. If I start putting out names and all of a sudden it turns out that for whatever reason we can't do them, I don't want to have people let down. But we definitely want to appeal to sort of that classic sense of the old dungeons or adventure sort of paths that people did in ancient and not so ancient times. Because I think that the Temple of Elemental Evil has generated a lot of excitement because for older school players, it harkens back to a certain nostalgia. It's like, wow, I'm kind of in this.
And it will give us an opportunity to go to places and types of places we haven't necessarily seen before or haven't seen in a while. So the people on the Lamania forums have been speculating about this, but yes, the gatekeepers will be the faction for these classic modules, and you'll enter those classic modules from the Hall of Heroes.
Are we going to get a new faction?
Yes, there is a new. So, short answer is yes, you got a new faction, but you don't get any faction rewards yet. We've added the gatekeepers as a faction for Temple of Elemental Evil, and they're in there. There's a faction patron in the Hall of Heroes right now, but you don't. There's only 2 quests in the gatekeepers faction, so there's not enough to earn a faction reward yet. But we plan on there being enough someday.
I was wondering if you can elaborate more on the statement, have more itemization, both short-term for players with less time and long-term for players with more time.
Sure. I can talk to that, or do you want to take that?
You can start with that.
I'll start because I was the one who made the statement. So one of the things that we don't want is we don't want someone to go through Temple of Elemental Evil and get like a couple of bits of things that they don't know what to do with. So when you first go through Temple of Elemental Evil, there are a number of interesting base items that you can get. In addition, there's also random sort of singular items that can be found throughout the temple. And in that, if you just play through the temple, a few times, you should be getting cool items. For those who want to play through it more, there's a couple of upgrade systems, and as you go and explore the temple and get these drops of various ingredients that you need, you can upgrade your items either once, which will be a number of runs through the temple, or you can upgrade them twice, which will be designed to be quite difficult. When I say that tentatively because the players have a way of finding ways of completing content and doing things faster sometimes than we had anticipated. But I think that it will have a little bit for all kinds of players.
Anything to add?
If we want to go further into that, basically there are currently nine named items in the way that players are used to in the Temple of Elemental Evil that are weapons, shield, and orb. And those are traditional, what you expect. They're tough to find, they drop rare, but they do come already with mythic components on them, which we're trying a whole new mythic system starting this update. With the new mythic system, every slot can get a mythic bonus, and those will all stack together. So you can really hunt out a whole bunch of mythic gear over time to fill out and make your character a lot more powerful. There'll be an extreme chaser mythic that we're not expecting people to have in every slot that will give it even a little bit more of a bonus. So that'll be showing up now. The other part of Temple is a bunch of base weapons and then mushrooms that you use to upgrade the powers on these as you go through the runs and collect the mushrooms. And that comes with just about every melee weapon, caster version of the melee weapon, and ranged weapons. So there's a lot to collect throughout the temple as you go through there.
So I want to jump on the mythic stuff really quick. Are you saying that there's going to be mythic items like we're used to in the Orchard, and then they will get a mythic bonus on top of that? Or is it mythic is going to be an attribute that can show up on random gear?
Mythic is going to be an effect that can show up on gear and give you extra PRR and MRR or melee power, spell power, and range power, depending on the slot that it goes in.
That sounds fun. I think just maybe go through a couple of quick questions that some of the listeners of the show had. Jennifer asks, what are plans to keep level 30 interesting and keep progression in the game?
The level 30 will be certainly coming later in the year. I think that one of the challenging parts is we want to accumulate enough content so that people don't have to do the same content over and over again. But that's one of the things that we're working on. I think that if people just leveled to 30 and simply got 1 feat, that might not be enough. On the other hand, we don't want the last 2 levels to be so overwhelmingly complex or powerful that the first epic levels don't seem as relevant. So I think that we need to find a happy medium in there.
DDO Dude wants to know if there's any plans for casters getting new or epic spells.
Right now, the casters are in good shape, but we're looking at feedback. What we're planning on doing is, if the casters are finding that they need more mitigation, then we'll probably tackle that with spells. I think that their trees are in fairly good shape. They have a lot of versatility because of the number of spells they have, and they have a lot of tactical options that, say, melee and even ranged do not. So they're probably in a better place in that you have a lot of different play styles depending on whether you just want to use fireballs and direct damage spells, or walls and run things through the walls, or approach the game in a variety of ways. Whether you want to be a CC caster and make people helpless so that you can kill them that way. So the spells will probably be added to address specific balance problems rather than just put in for the sake of being put in.
And Steiner David wants to know if there's any chances of a cleric domains being added into the game.
Steiner, you've had this question more than once.
Cleric domains.
Oh, more cleric domains?
Well, they're thinking the traditional cleric domains 3/5 wise.
Yeah, that would require a large revamp of the spells.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're planning on doing that currently. A lot of the domain effects would basically duplicate other things. So and also, what would probably happen is, as soon as we try to add some domains, the players who didn't get their favorite domains would then start asking for more gods. And then we start doing more gods and they want more special weapons, and all of a sudden we're opening a can of worms that'll be just like everywhere. So if we are going to tackle that, it will require a lot of sort of surrounding design work.
Then maybe 2 more questions here. There's kind of generic questions. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts you can share yet on some of the new or enhancement trees you're looking at, be it the Ranger or Monk revamping, or Druid, Favorite Soul, Artificer, and new enhancement trees. Just curious if there's anything you have thoughts on that you can share. Or I know that this is all very subject to change and stuff like that, but just thought I'd ask.
Well, we certainly don't want to reveal anything about new enhancement trees, because as soon as we say something, the speculation can go crazy, and then also it may be that we have really good ideas but that aren't technically feasible. I think that we are working on Warlock and doing Ranger next, because Deepwood Stalker and Arcane Archer need to be updated as part of the Range Pass. And then we need to add a 3rd tree to Favorite Soul, which I don't want to comment on what the specific tree is yet, and a 3rd tree to Druid. And the difficulty there is that when we do a Druid pass, we want to redo the forms. There are a lot of idiosyncrasies on how they work and what styles they work with, and we don't want to start changing those until we have a chance to do a Druid pass, because our goal isn't that Druid gets less powerful. It's just that it makes more sense to the players.
Maybe can you speak a little bit to Warlocks? What kind of roles do you envision that they're fulfilling in the game, and maybe how you expect them to be splashing with other classes that are currently in the game?
The Warlock is more like a ranged person who blasts damage with the Eldritch Blast and has spells to support that, than it is a traditional caster that's going to get most of its damage from like Fireball or typical direct damage spells. So we expect that the DPS comes from its Eldritch Blast, and we've been looking into doing new animations for it. And then the Eldritch Blast you'll have things in your trees that will turn on and off various effects on your Eldritch Blast, so that maybe you'll have an Eldritch Blast that can shoot Eldritch Fire, and then you have another person that has a toggle that can turn on that can shoot lightning instead, and then you can turn on or off various bits and pieces that give your Eldritch Blast certain other qualities.
Okay, that sounds excitingly interesting. I just want to say thanks again, guys, for joining us, and apologies again for the technical difficulties. We'll try and maybe polish it up in post or something. But thanks very much for the hard work you guys do, and thanks for taking the time to give us a preview.
Thank you.
Thanks.
About the only thing I'd add that's in Update 25 that I don't know we really got to the preview here is we are planning to do, we referenced some work in regard to ranged power. I know you had a question as to where we're going to see that. You're going to see that in, say, the Epic Destiny trees. You're going to see that in the Enhance.
As you level.
Yeah, as you level.
Each epic
right.
level, like Melee Power, also has range, and then the cores of the Epic Destinies give out range.
Yeah, cores of EDs give out ranged. Yeah, epic levels give out ranged, and you'll see that throughout. But we're going to be implementing a bunch of that with Update 25 here, so you'll be seeing that.
And Monster Manual Volume 4.
Oh, and Monster Manual Volume 4. That's a good point. Right.
And
All
a
right,
hint for Monster
thanks,
Manual Volume 5. Snuck that one into the release notes there.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Patrick.
With that, let's move on to game news. There's quite a bit of it this week. Regarding traps, Severlin said he believes the crafting costs do not change to be more than the level 11 version. As you craft higher level traps, the cost remains the same. They're fairly happy with the trap costs as they stand, and trap parts don't drop in significantly higher numbers and higher level content. The elemental damage traps deal 5d6 damage per minimum level required beyond 1. That follows the existing trap forms from level 3 to 11. As an example, level 13 traps do 60d6, and level 27 traps do 130d6. Yeehaw. We will be watching to see if the highest trap levels need a bump, but these are the values likely to hit Lemania. Regarding range, the plan is to have more range goodness as part of Update 25, which we're seeing on Lemania. They may not all be there. For Mechanic, on Hip Flask being an action boost, he agrees that having a capstone competing with action boost might be a concern. He's going to bring that up with the team. Regarding Rack Construct, he'll bring up concerns with the team. This might be a place where mechanics can make constructs vulnerable to sneak attacks for a time. A rogue archer and rogues skilled at throwing are staples in fantasy, so they want a place for them, and this tree seemed to be the best of the three. If they hit caps on throwing speed on Lemania or in testing, they can replace Alacrity for double shot for throwing weapons. If non-repeating crossbows and great crossbows are still too far behind, they will look into large sneak attack bonuses for them. There are no plans for a ranged assassinate. Trap DCs are determined by the disabled device skill of the person who is setting it. The DC is determined when the trap is set. He's trying to say that players should play with it when it hits Lemania. So if you're interested in figuring out how the traps work, make sure you go check it out on Lemania if you have concerns or you want it to work in some form or another. There was a question about making the DC based on UMD, but that's kind of unrelated to the trap pass. It's unlikely the mechanic changes will be available for the first pass, but trap changes should still be there. Regarding nerfing Coup de Grace, if players want us to tone down Coup de Grace and to not use Perform, they would need to have a more realistic comparison with some DPS numbers. The concern here is that the devs look at the two classes, and Assassin gets 15d6 worth of sneak damage, whereas Bard don't. He's not saying that a compelling argument can't be made for nerfing Coup de Grace, but he wants they haven't seen one yet. The reason why it was added to Bard is because that class needed a lot of benefit at the time to bring it up to par. Regarding Assassins, an Assassin Rogue will be unlikely to match completion time solo since its strength is delivered DPS in a group or using a meticulous playstyle to eliminate enemies from stealth. That playstyle doesn't lend itself to fast solo completion times. Let's see. They will be watching on Lemania for feedback on sneak speed, keeping in mind that there's low-hanging acrobat speed boost should affect overall speed, including stealth. They do have some room for improvement, but they don't think they want stealth to provide a speed boost over unstealth speed. Measure the foe is not meant to be a constant buff, which is why it doesn't fade away. They want it to feel like the assassin is really good in those first 10 seconds of surprise of confusion among foes, and then they are back to normal in the next round. It's their best representation of pen and paper's surprise round. They have been discussing decreasing the cooldown of assassination as an option. If overall performance of assassin is too low, then that is a buff they can consider. As an aside, they don't want to buff assassinate for the sole reason that coup de grace is better, as that ability is probably overperforming. They want to support dexterity-based rogues who are assassins, especially since the tree itself gives dexterity to hit and damage with daggers and kukris. We wouldn't make the capstone only intelligence, as someone had suggested. It's already enough of a disadvantage to lose out on assassinate DC. The vision is that assassin isn't meant to be a passive mitigation tree. Their mitigation will come from debuffs. If you need passive mitigation, you want to splash it, and they are looking into how much of an issue one-shots are for rogues since they have lower hit points. It's a big discussion point on the Players' Council as well. If they address it, they'd be more likely to add functionality to improve defensive roll to cut back specifically on those big hits rather than adding more passive mitigation. There's a question regarding content for Forgotten Realms versus Eberron. They do intend to continue both Forgotten Realms and Eberron content depending on the storyline they are pursuing. There's a little bit more information on Anarok and why it was pushed off, and the points that Severlin posted were that player excitement seems high for classic modules. They had been talking about classic modules for a while, and the time was right to do Temple of Elemental Evil. There was also high excitement on the team for that module. The storyline they are currently pursuing involving classic modules wouldn't take them to Anarok. They were concerned that following Temple of Elemental Evil with Anarok would have seemed like a tangent in the storyline. With Menactrin, they already have a large, sprawling desert area, and outside of a cool raid with Ferium, they didn't feel like they had another take on desert content to offer at the time. They thought about just doing a raid involving those elements, but were concerned that players wouldn't find that as exciting. The Players' Council, as Sev posted, has a nice DPS test it's using in comparing times. If he gets a chance, he wants to duplicate that thread on the live forum so people can contribute there as well. Regarding Warlocks, we should expect them in the latter half of 2015. Then there's a whole bunch of comments on game direction. And kind of in a quick summary, Sev said that they want to do more classic dungeons. They want to get back in the habit of ongoing storylines that span multiple updates. They're targeting 9 to 12 months to start. They want to open up more build choices and more frequent build design discussion through revamps. They want to have more itemization, both short-term for players with less time and long-term for players with more time. And they want to let characters progress to level 30 in a fun and satisfying way. Going into more detail on the specifics of what they're doing with class passes would take a lot more time than he had, but he will try to proceed class tree posts with a post on overall design goals for a class before they get into those details. Regarding some of those details, regarding the storylines, that they are talking about new storylines even if they revisit older places or characters, while they will poll the community on where they'd like to visit or what type of content they'd like to see. Direct polling them on the specifics of a storyline would sort of defeat the purpose. Regarding Paladin's Holy Sword, he said it is overperforming, so 14 Paladin is considered a must. He doesn't know that he'd say that pure Paladin is a must, though. For Barbarian, the Frenzy Berserker core is probably too good, and Ravage Heals are overperforming. He doesn't know that he would say that the Frenzy Berserker or Occult Slayer heals are too powerful. Regarding what classes they want to upgrade, the plan is Rogue, Ranger, Favored Soul tweaks, and a third tree, Fighter, Druid tweaks and a third tree, Form revamp, Artificer, and Monk, stating that pure Monk probably needs some love. Note that he reserves the right to change the order as needed, and Warlocks will obviously also affect that progression. Longer term, they'd like to get Sorcerer a third tree, but if caster mitigation is an issue, they will probably solve that through new high-level spells instead of tree revamps. They also plan to let the players go to level 30 this year, and they want to make them feel as though progression to 30 was worth it. Don't know if adding 2 more levels with an extra feat or 2 would accomplish that feeling. The next 3 updates will also all offer endgame components. And then the big thing for the week, Update 25, hit Lemania. This is a summary of some of the show notes and known issues. It's not everything, just kind of the big things. Temple of Elemental Evil is on there. It's a new adventure pack, free to VIPs, offers both heroic and epic level versions. The NPCs that bestow and take adventurers to the Temple of Elemental Evil can be found in the Hall of Heroes, which is a little bit of a different place, in addition to the Hall of Heroes passport available from character selection screen. The loot is mostly weapon and armor based with some upgrade systems. If you want to, you can find out what they're thinking about. They haven't actually put loot into the game yet. They're just right now on Lemania forums kind of showing players what they're looking at doing. The Temple of Elemental Evil is divided into 2 quests. You will have to complete the first before you can access the second, and they do have different favor rewards. There's a certain amount of random encounter setup, which may be the reason for some of the crazy experiences people were having. Monsters and bosses won't always be in the same place, but that does mean that it can vary from playthrough to playthrough. Regarding items, there was a post from No Worries. Starting with Update 25, they're taking a new approach with itemization. The goal is to have fewer effects, which are more powerful on items, which allows for a wider variety of the loot created. At the same time, they're attempting a new approach with the mythic aspect of loot. The new approach will have items show up with a mythic effect that will give a bonus to PRR, MRR, or to melee power, spell power, or range power, depending on the slot of the item. There will be a more common lower power version of the mythic effect and a rare chaser level that has a bit more power. The mythic bonuses from each slot will stack with each other. So example, if you have a 2 PRR bonus from your shield and a +1 from your necklace, you will have a total of +3. Some fun news, there is a new monster manual, the 4th volume. It's available in the DDO store and it's free to VIPs. This is the last monster manual to feature astral shards, so get it today. The next edition, hint hint, of monster manuals will offer a different type of reward. The new monsters in the monster manual, as reported by players on the mania, were mind flayers, lions, Ifriti, mummies, horn devils, abishai, air elementals, clay golem, stone golems, and orcs, which is a good range of choices. I'm guessing that some of that has to do with the Temple of Elemental Evil, but it has some lower level monsters and some higher level monsters as well. Although some of them are fairly uncommon, so it will take some hunting. Specifically, stone golems and abishai and Ifriti that are not overly common throughout the game, but it lets you go and find them. Range power has been added to epic levels and epic destiny cores. Each epic level from 21 to 28 now increases range power by 3. Fate Singer, Shadow Dancer, Primal Avatar, and Shirati Champion get +4 range power per innate ability, and Grandmaster of Flowers, Legendary Dreadnought get +3, Divine Crusader and Unyielding Sentinel get 2, and Fury of the Wild gets 1. Resetting enhancements in Epic Destiny trees may now take slightly longer to improve server performance. The base armor value for Warforged Adamantine Body is now 30, and the base armor value for Mithril is now 10. And PRR and MRR values for heavy, medium, and light armors are now 30, 20, and 10, plus a function of base attack bonus. Some known issues for Update 25 on Lemania, just so that everyone is aware of that. Update 25 loot is not yet available. The entrance of Temple of Elemental Evil is not in its final location. Using the fire altar in the fire temple more than once can cause you to become locked in the room permanently. Do not use the fire altar more than once. Experience values, optional objectives, and the Dungeon Master audio are not set in. Also, some monsters and NPCs do not have their proper appearance or dialogue. In Part 2, there's a section inside the temple. It's off of the main path that does not yet have decorations or lighting. Bandit trappers may not be laying some traps. There's a ballista encounter that's not yet functioning correctly. And new traps also have a string table error for their names. But if you've been waiting to try out Temple of Elemental Evil, here's your chance, first opportunity. And we'll be on the lookout as well for dev events. There was one this weekend already, but should be good times. Bonus days through the weekend, March 22nd. There's 20% bonus to Heroic XP and +1 to loot. Sales for the week. You can still get Autos boxes through the weekend. In addition, for the sales, you can get 30% off of True Hearts of Wood, Lesser Hearts of Wood, Quest XP elixirs, healing items, and spell point potions. You can also get a lasting potion of resist acid plus 20, a 5 stack of those with the code ACID21 per account. Community news, the 134th Chronicle. Seki was looking at stealth, and look, you can find out some tips and more from them. Big Erky Kid put together a detailed post about physical resistance rating, which was kind of more about the theory and less about numbers specifically. The High Lords of Malkir on Solana were hosting a Reaver's Fate and Fall of Truth this weekend on Saturday. The Originals are the guild for the week, a new Orion-based guild featuring permadeath and random character rolling rules. The guild has their own website, so you can find out more from them. The Comment, what is your favorite character's favorite pizza topping? And I would have to say that my Barbarian Warforged likes to eat beholders for breakfast. He would say beholder eyes. Fansite news, we got a shout out for our Improving Your Offense episode last week. The DDO Players News was talking about Killer DM mode on their new episode. It was episode 24. They called it the McRib of DDO, referring to, I believe that was referring to Otto's boxes. DDO Central is maintaining a list of resources for new players. It's a great website if you haven't checked it out yet. Enrique wanted to know who makes invisibility potions in a blog post, and DDO Gamer learned how to abbot with the High Lords and had a blog about it as well. Some of the videos this week, you can watch that High Lords of Malkir Abbot training video on Voodoo's YouTube page. There's also a Spring Fling video and Weekly Wednesday from March 18th. The Spring Fling was in Cold Chamber, and Weekly Wednesday was in Misery's Peak. There's also a community update video on the 20th, although it didn't have a whole lot of new information. Mostly stuff we've already covered. With the Lightning Post this week, I'll answer 2 quick questions here. Can a player get to epic levels without ever completing a raid? And the answer is absolutely yes. In fact, you probably won't complete a raid. And the reason for that is the population at heroic levels is much smaller than it used to be. So you're probably not going to be finding a group to do much of the raids. Tempest Spine, you'll probably be able to find a group for that gets run pretty commonly. Vaughn 5, at least Vaughn 5, not necessarily Vaughn 6. Generally, you can find an at-level group, although it's hard to get that to fill. A lot of people wait for that for Epic anyways. But you can absolutely get there without having any sort of raid experience getting to Epics. That's totally doable. And in fact, I usually myself get to level 20 without actually even running any Epic quests that you can run in Epic, just so I can save my bravery bonus. So don't worry about raiding. You can get there no problem without actually doing that. The second question is in relationship to the Owlbear companions and whether or not you can get them. The way that people got them was that it was part of the sale for the Stormhorns and Wayloon expansion pack. You had to do it with the pre-order of the Shadowfell Conspiracy expansion pack and then buy the upgrade. So I'm pretty sure that it's not available anymore. However, those that do have them can, of course, keep them and have fun with them. But it's kind of something you want to look for with the expansion packs when they do come out. They usually have some pre-order stuff from them. And for the Shadowfell Conspiracy, it was the Owlbear Defenders. For Menace of the Enderarch, it was the Onyx Panther. But that's where they came from. They're not in the store because they were specifically made to be kind of those pre-order expansion pack purchases. With that, I will say again, thank you to the devs for joining me today for Ask the Devs. And again, I apologize for the video problems we had. I'm trying to get some of that stuff resolved for the next show. Also, thanks to other contributors for DDOcast. It's a great team that I get to work with to make these podcasts. Really enjoy working with them. Thanks also to Turbine and Wizards for the game. And thanks to Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you want to be a part of the show or just say hi, you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You You can also find us on social media and follow us for latest cast updates. The closing tip for the week, always ask questions. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level perfect, have fun, and don't forget to check out Lumania and the new Update 25.